The U.S. government criticizes other countries that allow child marriages, but it turns out that here in the U.S., hundreds of thousands of young girls have gotten married over the last 10 years, and they did it legally.
I was just a little girl wanting to have a boyfriend or something like that, and my mom turned it into something way different.
Hello everyone, my name is Jared Withers and welcome back to my channel. Today, alright, you saw the title, you saw the thumbnail. It's very different from my usual content, but I think it's very important to bring to light. While I understand this is far from an American issue, I live in America, so this needs to be addressed by the biggest superpower in the world. I'm going to try to explain this well, and of course I'm adding a trigger warning. Also, I'm using the word child to refer to anyone under the age of 18, just so we're all on the same page. Let's start with some history. There are numerous references to child marriage in 16th century legal scholar papers. This is very common, so common it was the norm. In ancient and medieval societies, it was common for girls to be betrothed by the age of puberty or even before. In ancient Greece, early marriage and teen motherhood was expected. Western Europe was characterized with late marriage usually happening in the person's mid-20s. Most religions went by very specific codes and strict laws. In Christianity, they followed canon law, which stated that marriage for girls is forbidden before puberty. The Hindu book Vedas agreed, stating marriage should be performed after the age of puberty. In the laws of Manu, which were never implemented as law, a father is considered to have wronged their daughter if he fails to marry her before puberty, and if the girl is not married in less than 3 years after reaching that point, she can search for a husband herself. Jewish scholars and rabbis strongly discourage marriages before the onset of puberty, although in exceptional cases, girls ages 3 to 12, 12 being the age of consent, according to Jewish laws, might be given in marriage by her father. According to the 1907 Catholic Encyclopedia, Acrofall accounts that Mary, the mother of Jesus, was 12 to 14 at the time of her marriage to Joseph. Historically, within the Catholic Church, the minimum age for a dissoluble betrothal was older than 7 for both children. The minimum age for a valid marriage was puberty, or nominally 14 for males and 12 for females. In 1917, Code of Canon Law raised the minimum age for a valid marriage, 16 for males and 14 for females. The 1983 Code of Canon Law maintained the minimum age for a valid marriage at 16 for males and 14 for females. In the antebellum South, marriages between older men and younger women were not extremely common, but still not seem out of the norm either. While there is no singular justification for child marriage, some do this in accordance with religious or cultural traditions. Some do it to avoid legal ramifications for having sexual activities with minors. According to a study of the U.S. Census data from 1890, there were 9.7% of teen girls and 0.5% of teen boys between the ages of 15 and 19 years old who had married at some time. After World War II, there was a significant increase in teen marriage during the 1940s. Nearly 12% of teen girls between the ages of 15 and 19 had been married. This number had increased to over 17% by the 1950s. By the 1960s, a study found that 32.9% of girls at ages 18 to 19 were already married, while 8.9% of teen boys got married. These numbers got lower as time went on. 1 in 3 teen marriages end in divorce by age 25. Cases of child marriage exist in every race/ethnic background. Instances of marriage were lower among white non-Hispanic children, 5%, versus Native Americans being 10.3% and Chinese being 14.2%. Also, U.S.-born African-American girls are 1.5 times more likely to marry underage than U.S.-born Caucasian girls. Girls of Hispanic origin are more likely than those of black or white heritage to be married as a minor. Let's go to the states with the highest percentage of child marriage. West Virginia has a child marriage percentage of 7.1%, Texas is at 6.9%, Nevada is at 5.9%, Oklahoma is at 5.8%, Arkansas is at 5.6%, California and Tennessee are tied at 5.5%. North Carolina is at 5.4%. Where I live, the Great Lakes State, is at 3.8%. Now, this is not the lowest. The honor goes to Alaska at 1.8%, but is on the lower side. About 57,800 minors were married from ages 15 to 17 during the period between 2014 and 2016. As of January 2022, 41 states have set an absolute minimum marriage age by statute, which vary between 14 and 18 years of age. American Samoa, in September of 2018, raised the minimum age from 14 to 18 for girls, keeping in line with boys. In 2003, Alabama raised the marriage age from 14 to 16, but 14-year-old girls can still get married with some exceptions. In April of 2018, Arizona raised the minimum marriage age to 16. Such underage marriages must be approved by a superior court, must have either parental consent or emancipated minor, and the age difference must not be more than 3 years. In April of 2019, Arkansas raised the minimum marriage age for girls from 16 to 17 with parental consent to keep in line with boys. There was no minimum age for a pregnant girl to marry. In 2017, California had a bill that would have ended child marriage, but it ended up running into opposition from legislators, the ACLU, and Planned Parenthood. Since January 1st, 2019, California legally requires the parents and partners of minors wishing to marry to meet with court officials separately to determine if there was any coercion. On October 1st, 2017, Connecticut raised the minimum marriage age to 16, as well as requiring both parental and judicial consent before minors can marry. In early 2018, Florida passed and signed a law to amend its marriage laws only after intense media attention. Since July 1st, 2018, the minimum marriage age is 17 with both parental and judicial approval required, and the age difference between parties must not be more than 2 years. In May 2019, Georgia raised the minimum marriage age explicitly from 16 to 17. They must be emancipated minors, must have completed a premarital education course, and cannot marry anyone more than 4 years older than them. In February 2019, a bipartisan anti-child marriage bill was voted down by the Idaho House of Representatives. The bill would have made it illegal for anyone under 16 to get married, and for 16 to 17-year-olds, it would have required the consent of parents, a judge, and the minor themselves. Idaho now has the highest rate of child marriage in the United States. In March 2018, Kentucky amended its marriage laws. After several failed attempts at restricting child marriage, a redrafted bill was introduced, passed at all stages of the Kentucky legislature, and was signed by the governor on March 29, 2018. The new law sets a minimum age of 17 with a judge's approval. Missouri raised the minimum age from 15 to 16 in July 2018. Parental permission is required. A 2021 bill introduced in North Carolina raised the minimum marriage age from 14 to 16. New Hampshire passed a law, which was signed by Governor Chris Sununu in 2018, that legally raised the minimum age to 16 with judicial approval. In 2019, Ohio raised the minimum age to 18 for both parties, but allowed an exemption for 17-year-olds to marry if they have juvenile court consent, go through a 14-day waiting period, and the age difference between the parties is not more than 4 years. In March of 2018, a proposed bill to end child marriage in Tennessee was terminated. The bill was revived due to political pressure, passed and signed into law in May 2018 by Governor Haslam, preventing anyone younger than 17 marrying in Tennessee. In 2017, Texas raised the marriage age to 18, however, they kept exceptions, allowing emancipated minors aged 16 to 17 to marry. On March 25, 2019, the governor of Utah, Gary Herbert, signed a law which raised the minimum age from 15 to 16 with parental permission. In 2016, Virginia changed the law to set 18 as the minimum age and 16 in special circumstances with judicial approval. Prior to the passing of the bill, there was no minimum age in the state. As of February 2022, when I'm recording this, Delaware, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, and Minnesota since 2018 have banned marriage involving anyone under the age of 18. Freddie Reese was raised Hardy Jewish in Brooklyn, New York. In an interview, Reese discussed being in an arranged marriage to a 27-year-old she knew for 3 months when she was 19. According to Reese, in the first week of marriage, her then-husband showed signs of abusive behavior towards her, which included that he repeatedly threatened to kill her and engaged in other forms of violence. Reese only realized she was experiencing domestic violence when she spoke to a therapist outside of her community. As usually happens, her community members encouraged her to stay with her husband. She experienced more abuse and eventually got a temporary restraining order and was the first woman in her community to do so. However, Reese has stated her rabbi sent a lawyer to take Reese to court to get the restraining order dropped. At age 32, Reese graduated from Rutgers University and was a commencement speaker. She began to work as a journalist and left her husband after 12 years of marriage. She wasn't able to obtain a divorce until 3 years later. Reese left Judaism and became an atheist. In 2011, Reese founded a nonprofit organization called Unchained at Last. Unchained at Last helps support women who wish to leave forced and arranged marriages. Unchained, however, cannot help minors, but Reese is working to get U.S. law changed to be able to help them. Unchained at Last serves people from various communities. Reese has also participated in a planning session held by the White House Council on Women and Girls that would target development of a national policy on forced and arranged marriages. Reese also collaborated with New Jersey Senator Loretta Weinberg on a draft of a law that would allow women to access crime victimization records free of charge. This would allow women to use those records as proof to obtain restraining orders. In 2018, the first 2 states that signed laws ending underage marriage did so due to Unchained's activism and assistance. If you would like to know more, the website link is down below.